Good morning, happy Friday, and welcome to Sick Call. Today we're discussing Army Optometry with Major Christina Bartee. Ma'am, good morning, and thank you for being with us today.
Hey, good morning, team. Thanks for having me.
So we know you're very busy, and we appreciate you taking time out today. So can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a 67 Foxtrot, which is an optometrist for the Army. So I'm a Medical Service Corps officer. I have been in just about 12 years on active duty. I was a direct commission straight from optometry school. And I have been at 3 duty stations so far. And currently I'm stationed at Fort Irwin, California. Right now, I'm the executive officer for the hospital, and I'm going to be moving over to be their chief of operations very shortly. Prior to my administrative roles I'm taking on right now, I was the chief of optometry here.
So, ma'am, your position wouldn't necessarily coincide directly with a traditional path for an optometrist. Can you talk a little bit about, how the Army model structures to kind of give some different perspective and opportunities for career progression?
Sure. So most optometrists in the military, especially their first 2, 3 duty stations, are almost always going to be pretty clinical. So especially your first duty station, you're usually going to be a staff optometrist seeing patients most of the time. And that's going to be your full-time job. As you grow up in the Army, there's broadening assignments and other types of assignments that you can choose to apply for. Usually, as you get more to the major lieutenant colonel ranks, you'll be chiefs of larger optometry clinics or chiefs of specialty clinics where it includes optometry and physical therapy and audiology and things like that. For my personal path, I actually volunteered to take on more of an administrative role. A few years back, the Army sent me to get my MBA, so I've gotten to use that quite a bit, which has been great. There are positions that you can compete for as an optometrist that are very administrative in nature. The deputy commander for administration is kind of like a COO of a hospital, or the executive officer. So those opportunities are available as Medical Service Corps officers, but it's kind of more of an opt-in section of a career path. There's a lot of people who mostly do clinical care and managing of optometry departments for the majority of their careers.
So, ma'am, we like to give our viewers a perspective on what to initially expect in their career as an optometrist in the Army. What was your first assignment like?
Sure. My very first assignment was Fort Stewart, Georgia, and I was a staff optometrist there at a troop medical clinic. So the majority of my patient care was active duty soldiers. I did cover down at the hospital a little bit, so I did see retirees and family members over at the main hospital. But the majority of my time was spent with the soldiers, so it was very much like a primary care optometry practice. Lots and lots and lots of red eyes and trauma. So that was actually really great being fresh out of optometry school. I saw a lot more ocular disease than I was really expecting to see. I thought it was just going to be boring, young, healthy refractions all day, but actually it was quite interesting. There was a lot of ocular disease, ocular trauma. My partner at the TMC liked to do specialty contact lens fits. We had quite a few keratoconus patients, so got a little bit into some specialty contact lens fitting as well. And then worked with the ophthalmologist at the hospital for kind of co-managing some post-surgical cases and things like that as well. But the majority of my time, 36 plus hours a week, was definitely clinical with just a little bit of admin time to do the mandatory training. About a year or so into my first duty station, I got put over vision conservation and readiness, which is making sure that soldiers have everything they need visually to be able to successfully deploy. And so I went over to a processing center for like a pre-deployment processing center and did a lot of kind of the optical stuff over there, but I was still doing patient care as well. So yeah, first duty station was definitely fun. It was nice having a mentor there with me. So having some other experienced Army officers, Army optometrists with me to kind of do a little bit of post fourth year internship / mentorship was a great experience for me. And overall, it was a really great time.
So you mentioned a few different areas of optometry and kind of specialized care. Are there opportunities for residency training or advanced specialized care for folks that are maybe looking to broaden their skill set through the Army?
There are. So we do have a few Army residencies that are available. Usually you serve a couple years at your first duty station, and then you can start applying and competing for those. Usually the process goes 2-3 years on station, and then you apply for a residency or like an MBA or some other type of schooling program if you choose to go that route. It's up to the service member what they want to do. The residencies are mostly kind of family practice, primary care type residencies. They do touch on specialty contact lens fittings. And then there is a traumatic brain injury focused neurooptometry residency that they offer at Fort Bragg. So yeah, for people who are interested in doing a residency during their military career, it's called the Long-Term Health Education and Training Program. And so that's an option as well.
So you mentioned that you were a direct accession from optometry school. Did you take advantage of any health profession scholarship during school?
Yep, I was HPSP Health Profession Scholarship Program recipient. I got a 3-year scholarship, and so when I graduated, I owed 3 years in the Army. During my time in school, didn't have a lot of obligations to the Army other than just making sure I passed and got my my NBEO board certification, all that type of stuff done. And then I decided after the end of my 3 years that I was going to stay longer than I had initially expected when I signed up. And so here I am.
So which assignment has been your favorite location so far, ma'am?
I got to spend 3 years in Stuttgart, Germany, which was a really, really cool assignment. Getting to live overseas is just a very special thing that was one of the main carrots that got dangled in front of me when I first was signing up. My husband loves to travel, and that was a really, big selling factor to considering an Army career. So I was really fortunate to get stationed over there. We were about 4 hours from Paris and a couple hours from Switzerland, and we just did a ton of traveling, which was really fantastic. So a couple years without kids, and then 1 year with a child, and so it was a good adventure.
What's your favorite part about serving, man?
Let's see. I think that the best part about serving as an optometrist anyway, compared to just being on the outside and being an optometrist, I really love our patients. So serving soldiers to me is really, really fun. I really, really like being able during my exam times with them to kind of learn about their stories. As a civilian without a lot of military experience going into this, I didn't realize how diverse and broad the Army was. There truly is one of everybody in the Army. So I've really enjoyed that. And then for me personally, being able to branch out and do some other things like I've done the past couple of years on the administrative side of the house, and doing some projects where I'm working more over specialty clinics or ancillary clinics with pharmacy and lab. That has been really good for me to just not get burnout and be able to mix up my career path a little bit and have a little bit more of a broadening experience has definitely been one of the biggest benefits for me.
So the transition from student to soldier sometimes is a hard concept for folks to grasp. Can you kind of explain what that looked like from graduation kind of into that first assignment time frame so folks kind of have a feel for what to expect?
Sure. So I'll give you all the details with the caveat that my experience was a little bit different than probably most people's will be. So optometry school finished up in May, and I really had not had any contact with anybody other than the recruiters up until that point. So I didn't have a uniform or anything like that yet. And so June is just usually kind of a month off for most of us. Most of us start our actual duty assignment in July. The normal process would be to start at Fort Sam Houston for Officer Basic course, which is a medical class. So you're with other physicians and dentists and nurses, and it's a 12-week program where you kind of learn your basic Army, you know, Army lingo and all that type of stuff. The year I graduated, there was a little bit of issues and there was not space in the class. So my report date did not change. It was still in July. However, instead of going to Fort Sam Houston, I went straight to my first duty assignment at Fort Stewart, Georgia. And some recruiters were really kind and helped me figure out how to buy a uniform and all that stuff. And I had my little officer manual guide for in-processing that I was using and some mentorship from the other optometrist at Fort Stewart. But I basically drove myself from California to Georgia and reported in mid-July. Had a couple weeks of what we call in-processing, where we do all the paperwork and get everything for housing and all that type of stuff settled. And then within about 3 weeks, I was basically doing full-time optometry care. So very similar to like a fourth-year rotation. If you ever knew anybody who did a fourth-year rotation at a military facility, I was just actually doing it in uniform as the optometrist now. And so I did that for a few months, and then I did eventually get to go to basic training. And I was a little bit more high speed than my other classmates who were straight from their other locations. But most of the optometrists who are direct commission will just go to basic training for that 12 weeks. It's mostly didactic learning. So classroom is the majority of your time for that, with just a few weeks in the field where you get to do some soldier skills, you get to go shooting, do land navigation and some things like that.
So if you had some advice for some of these new students that might be considering a career in Army medicine like yourself, what would you recommend for them? Whether opportunities for growth prior to, or what are you looking for a new optometrist?
So are you talking about as a clinic lead? What am I looking for?
Mm-hmm.
So I just got a brand new optometrist in. She just started here a little bit less than a year ago. And so really having somebody who is willing to just take on the responsibility, and when things pop up, be willing to join the team and meet the mission. For example, my optometrist here had a very unique path the last year. We have COVID-19 going on as a crisis, and because we were okay for staffing in the optometry clinic, she really took on a lot of the burden of mass testing. So we have a big training center here. We had to figure out how to get 4,000 people tested every month for mass testing to make the training program go on. And as a very young captain, she was able to take on some of that additional responsibility and run some of that program. So being versatile and willing to take responsibility right away is huge. For your very first assignment, just really important that you get your clinical skills and confidence up, making sure that you're ready to kind of be out there on your own when you get your own clinic someday, or if you're at your own clinic, just kind of getting that experience under your belt is kind of a focus. And then just learning the ropes. When I have a new captain who are brand new, we don't expect them to know every single thing about the Army. We don't expect them to know how to fill out a leave form when they want to go on vacation. So it's just learning all those basic skills that first year. But being confident and willing to take the opportunities to lead little projects as they come up.
So, ma'am, one of the most asked questions that at least I've received is about deployments. So what is the role of an optometrist during deployments, and how often can they expect to deploy?
Sure. So we have what we call optometry teams, and they are small groups that usually consist of an optometrist, a tech, and then like a lab tech, so like a glasses lab, somebody who can fabricate glasses. And we have field sets that we would be able to set up like a little optometry eye lane in a tent and manufacture glasses out in the middle of nowhere. And so when you get assigned to one of those teams, they're in specific locations, you will be on a set deployment cycle. So when you are stationed somewhere like I am at a hospital in a non-team role, this is what we call a TDA role, or basically a non-deployable position where I'm at right now. That is actually the majority of the positions in the Army for optometrists are in these hospital or clinic type roles. But we do have optometry teams. Normally, the teams are run by captains. So most captains do serve on a team at some point, and they usually deploy at least once while they're on that team. So it kind of depends on what's going on with the op tempo of deployments in the country. And if we're in multi-faced wars, there's going to be more deployments. But right now there's less optometrists who have deployed just because we haven't been in a big conflict lately. At the peak of, kind of OIF and Operation Enduring Freedom, we definitely had people who were deploying for full years. Most people who deploy more than once, it's usually because they volunteered to deploy once. It's not impossible, but usually you serve on a team usually just once during your 20-year career for most people. So usually it's one deployment, unless we're not in any conflicts, and then a lot of times you don't have a deployment to do.
We appreciate your insight this morning, ma'am. It's always good to see it from the perspective of somebody who's currently doing the position, because truthfully, nobody can explain it as well as you can. So we appreciate your time. Do you have anything you'd like to add, or any, extra little tidbits that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Yeah, I just would encourage people to really consider this as an option. If you're in school, it can be very intimidating and like just a little bit of a mystery if you don't know anybody in the military, and you're going from a completely civilian environment and considering this. So I would say if you're curious and you really want to know what it's like, do reach out and talk to somebody who is active duty. The optometrists who are around in the Army or the other branches as well are usually more than willing to have a conversation about their experiences, the pros, the cons, to give you a good idea if it would be a good fit for you. I personally did not know anybody in the military when I first signed up for HPSP, and I was like, well, you can do anything for 3 years, and I ended up really, really liking it, and I stayed a lot longer. So definitely consider this as a good option if you're looking for an experience after school, and reach out if you have questions.
So, ma'am, we'd like to thank you again for taking time out of your day to talk with us. So
Well,
this wraps up another episode. We'd like to thank all of our viewers for tuning in with us live. As always, we welcome your questions, and you can comment below or on any of our other social media platforms. We hope everyone has a happy, safe, and healthy weekend, and we look forward to seeing you again next Friday at 10 a.m. here on Sid Call. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.